Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, just checking with everyone there. Can you hear me now? Hopefully you'll be able to pop it into the chat there if you can hear me.
Is your bar bouncing?
Yes.
There it goes.
Yep. Bar is all good. Great stuff. Okay. That's good. By the way, I just got an SOS call there from Joey sorting me out. So that's brilliant. Thank you very much indeed to him. So, hello everyone. We'll have another go at this. My name is Susan and it is a real pleasure to be here with you today for the ESG and Tech Show, where we can see the benefits of technology when it works. It's always amazing, and it's just always even better to have someone like Joey on call who can come in and solve any problem. So first of all, like I was saying to you, but you couldn't hear me, my name is Susan HayesCulleton, and I am going to be the host for your show today called the ESG and Tech Show. We are going to be discussing 5 key trends that relate to tech and ESG. Both of them are big interests of mine, and we're going to look at this very much looking at the future, being rooted in the present, and understanding how all of this affects the stock market. But before we get started, I'd love to hear where all of you are tuning in from now. So it'd be great to see in the chat there, and I can see so many of you there helping me out there with my audio issues. So thanks so much for that. So where are all of you tuning in from today? As I'm looking around, I see a couple of familiar names. So I'd love to see where you're tuning in from. And of course, if you are brilliant, I see Andrea there has started off with Ottawa, Canada. If you are on a mobile device, by the way, I'm looking over here at my mobile device. That's how I'm seeing all of your chats coming through. If what you need to do is click the X underneath the camera of where I'm appearing, and then choose the live chat button, and that is where you can then participate. So let's see where everyone is tuning in from. So Gardenia is tuning in from New York. Mike is from Edmonton in Canada. Kim is tuning in from Canada as well. Lee in California. Michael, Vancouver. David, Toronto. We see Alberta, Canada. Nova Scotia, Tennessee. Right, so we've got quite the audience from Canada and the US today. That's absolutely super. People can join in from all over. And of course, if you're watching this episode that it's not live, you are super welcome from where you're tuning in from as well. I also see Cambridge, Ontario. Okay. And so on. Brilliant indeed. That's as I say, you are super welcome indeed. Margaret is there from London, and I also see we've somebody there from Nepal as well. Wonderful. Now, the focus of today, so whether it is good morning to you, good evening, or good night, the focus of what we are looking at today is going to be, as I mentioned, 5 key trends that are happening in technology and ESG. Now, sometimes they won't be both. Sometimes they will. But what I wanted to do here is take a look around the world at a lot of tech transitions that are happening, and build an understanding around what that means for us in terms of as consumers, as business people, as employers, as employees, but also as citizens who could be raising families, who could be planning where we're going to live, etc. Because a huge amount of what we're looking at in terms of technology has a big impact on the way we live our lives holistically. Now, if we can get an understanding of that, then we can get an understanding of where the stock market might focus as well in the future. Because remember, it's earnings drive share prices. And if we go back a step further, well, what drives earnings? Well, earnings come from sales. Who creates sales? Well, it's individuals. And it's also businesses, as well as governments, as well as third sector, and so on. Now, what drives consumption is whether we deem something is a useful exchange for our money or not. And that's where everything we need to trace back to, so that we get an understanding then, if earnings drive share prices, what drives earnings? What drives earnings is us. Okay, so the first one that we are going to talk about tonight is smart cities. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give you an example of what smart cities would be all about, and then I'd love to hear then in the chat whether you've seen any experiences of smart cities, and let's just see where we might look to for clues for investing propositions thereafter. Okay, so if we think back to smart and cities, so a city is, I could define, I live in Dublin in Ireland, and there's about 1 million people in the city where I live. I have been to New York, I have been to Los Angeles, I have been to Hong Kong, I've been to Shanghai. They would class this city as tiny. So when we talk about smart cities, we're not really defining it in terms of size or geography or anything else like that. Instead, what we're defining it as a collection, a big community of people and who use the space for a variety of things. They use it for work, they use it for living, for recreation, for education, for eating out, for entertainment, for a variety of other things. So what's a smart city then? Well, a smart city is when you use devices in order to connect different things within the city for a specific purpose. That sounds a bit theoretical, so let me give you a practical example. One of them might be, and something that you might very commonly see, I've certainly seen it in many parts of the States, would be responsive traffic lights. So rather than creating traffic lights where cars need to stop in order to let others go, and rather than that being built on a timing system, which is, easy to program, what about if the traffic light was to use a sensor to observe if there aren't any cars waiting on the other side? So in other words, let's say that you've got a green light and there aren't any cars coming, the sensors would trigger that. And then instead of waiting for a timer for that green light to turn red, is that instead it would let the traffic go on the other side where there are cars waiting. So you're not relying on a human, right? We're not really relying on a human being in order to look at how things are changing, but instead we're relying on sensors to examine how to make that traffic light system work so that you've great efficiency. That's an example of smart cities. I'm going to give you some other bit more elaborate examples, and then I'm going to give you some US-centric examples that are happening right now, and I'm going to give you some figures behind it. Then we're going to take a look into the future and have a look around where we might look to for some clues for investing here. Let me give you another example. When you think about birdhouses, they're always outside, aren't they? After all, it's not where the birds hang out. Well, how about then if you were to use birdhouses that are static and always outside to capture data relating to air temperature? That is something that has been happening in Amsterdam in the Netherlands here in Europe. Or let's look a little bit more further into the future. You think about a bus route, right? Think about a bus route. And a bus route has a certain route that it simply travels. And when the bus gets there to a certain destination and there aren't anybody there waiting, then the bus just keeps going again. Take any type of public transport. It's still, because the route is fixed, it still has to arrive at a certain destination. Why? Because it's on a destination. But it's not dependent on demand, it's dependent on the way in which the route goes. But wouldn't it be interesting if there was an app that could collect data that looked at the times the people are actually landing at destinations, that are waiting for the bus, waiting for the train, or waiting for any other public transport system. And then, using data collected by the train station or by the bus stop, then it was able to plan the route according to predictive demand. That could actually be a far more effective use of transport vehicles. Of course, it would have a better impact on the environment, and it could basically mean rather than the bus coming at 2 o'clock, the bus then changes the route so that it is predictive. And then, of course, the app, I could interact with the app as the citizen of the city, where I could see what time the bus will actually be, where it will be, based on predictive data rather than anything else. Now, we could, of course, go further. I mean, we could go much further than this. We could look at, imagine driverless vehicles where I could push a button and the vehicle comes up to me, almost like a driverless taxi, only this would be on a public transport system connecting other people together. All of these things are possible. So let me now tell you what has been going on in the US in terms of this over the past while. Well, I'm just going to pull up some statistics here for you, and then I'm going to move over and I'm going to show you an article that was written in CNBC that will point us in the direction of a couple of ideas then relating to this type of a topic from an investment point of view. So first of all, according to the National League of Cities, 2/3 of US municipalities have invested in smart city technology. In fact, San Diego, one of my favorite cities in the States, I have to say, San Diego and Austin are my two favorite smaller cities in the States. San Diego installed smart lighting systems that automatically dim when no one's nearby, saving nearly $2 million a year in electricity costs. So from that point of view, why is the light on? Well, the light is on because it's dark. But what is it highlighting if there's nobody there? And of course, then you would have tracking systems in order to trigger the light to come on when somebody walks by. Now, similar Similar to this, some of you might have seen in European airports. I don't think I've seen it much in American airports. Then again, I haven't been in the States in over a year now. I haven't been anywhere outside of Ireland in over a year now. But there are some systems where if I walk onto a lift or onto an escalator or one of these moving travelators, that it stops until somebody walks on them. They're all what we call that. All of those would be built on the basis of sensors. So when San Diego did this, the smart lighting systems that automatically dim when no one's nearby saved $2 million a year in electricity costs. Now, remember I was telling you about the birdhouses and monitoring quality there. Well, Pittsburgh is replacing 36,000 streetlights with LEDs, low emission devices that contain sensors to monitor air quality. So there you've got the environmental impact of moving now to LEDs. And in addition, then they can monitor air quality. Think about a light. Think about a light outside. It's always outside. So as a result, if it's always outside, it's always going to be able to capture that air quality data as well. Now, let's go to Indiana. South Bend, Indiana installed sensors inside manhole covers that redirect water flow when sewer levels get too high. So that is where the systems themselves are making the decisions rather than needing human intervention. In fact, rather than needing human oversight all the time, is that the systems are saying, okay, when we get to X, then we do something else. Again, I don't know if many of you use something like Excel. I love Excel and I love thinking through the algorithms that I can set up within Excel. But you know the if-then loops? If something happens, then something else has to happen. That is what it's like, is installing an if-then loop. Whereas the argument is when you are looking at sensor data, comparing if something has happened and how it's changed. And then finally, I'm just going to mention one for San Francisco as well. After San Francisco installed gunshot detecting microphones in high crime neighborhoods, it reported a 35% decrease in incidents where shots were fired. So the thing is that where you had high crime neighborhoods, since you had those microphones that specifically detected that, because of the analysis of that data and because a message was triggered out to the community that this was now, the microphones were particularly listening out for this area, a 35% decrease in incidents where shots were fired. So you can see this is all tailoring into IoT, the Internet of Things. Things do the talking. Things collect data, things send that data to somewhere else, another thing makes a decision, and then that is how a smart city then can be created. So before I move on, and I'm going to show you a piece here from CNBC, and I'm just going to talk to you about how we can look at this from an investing point of view. Tell me, what are your thoughts on smart cities? Have you any experience of them? Do you think what I'm talking about would work? Well, we know they work, but what's your thoughts on them? Are there any concerns that you have around this? Because of course, throughout the Tech and ESG show, we'll have to talk about cybersecurity. Believe me, I'm in a country at the moment where there's a big issue to do with cybersecurity. I don't know if any of you has been following that story in the news. So of course, naturally enough, there's that. But I'd love to hear your thoughts for a moment now, just on the whole idea of smart cities. Have you seen any benefit of them? Have you seen any examples of them? Any other elements of best practice that you have to show? So I'm going to take a look over here. And of course, I also know that you're in some really great cities as well. Richard is tuning in here from San Francisco and Charles is tuning in from Vancouver. Let's see what you have to say while I'm changing over my screen, and I'm going to show you a statement here from Barclays. Okay, so I see Kem over here then says, sadly, there are no regulations that effectively protect the privacy of the citizens. Now, Kem, what I have to tell you about that is that in Europe we have GDPR, and GDPR is all around the protection of data. So even CCTV cameras here in Europe, you have to take out certain details of certain people's faces if you're going to be having CCTV, for example. That has to be in place. So there is regulation around privacy, and also then there can be the Data Protection Commissioner, and there's a variety of other things there. So I have to say that would be a regional disparity, all right? And this has to be a big concern for cities that are considering this. Let me see what else. Kem also said Google finally left Toronto because the city was unwilling to be okay. Right, yeah, that's an interesting point. I'll give you another example just before we move on. Here is something that happened in Dublin, and that is that here we have one of the smart cities initiatives is to collect data on footfall in shops, so that then the city council, the planning side of things, could actually look at where shops might, or where retail space might need to be placed in the future as well, based on the footfall and based on the changing demographics and a variety of other things like that, which they called using heat maps. And the other thing that I noticed that they did is that they compared the footfall, let's say during the week, during the weekend, and on special occasions. Can you imagine that the football was in a kind of different situation when it came to St. Patrick's Day here in Dublin? But I leave it up to your own thought process on why you think that might be. So thank you there, Ken, for your thoughts on that. Now, just going to take you over to a headline here. All right, this was on the 18th of October 2020, so a little while ago. And they do suggest some stocks, but I'm going to get into stocks later, but it's more so the industries behind smart cities that I just like to direct you towards. So down here, it says a massive, now we're here. That's it. That's all I want to show you. So a massive smart infrastructure boom could be about to kick off as cities face growing pressure to become more resilient in the wake of COVID-19. Combined with escalating sustainability commitments, here's where the ESG combines in here with tech, and the need to support ongoing population growth, Barclays believes the necessary change will require unprecedented urban investment and innovation. The firm said the impacts will be felt across 10 sectors, and this is where I think we now need to start paying attention from a VectorVest point of view, where I'm going to be popping on over here to the programme in a moment and showing you how to analyse those sectors. So according to data from McKinsey, at least $3.7 trillion per year in infrastructure investment is needed from now until 2035 to support the expected growth of cities. It has never been more crucial for existing and new cities to be made smarter, more sustainable, more efficient and sustainable, Barclays said in a recent note. The firm believes post-coronavirus mindset, greater attention on sustainability, new funding incentives and the development of key technologies will drive change. Using a broad definition of what constitutes a smart city and moving away from focusing solely on customer-facing technologies, Barclays said the investment here is likely to lie in enabling technologies, building and construction, energy and water and waste management. So, how do we put that information to use? Well, first of all, let's pop on over there to the program. So I'm going to go over there right now. Okay. And here we are, right? So what I've done here now is that I've pulled up the US program. Of course, I could do this for Canada as well. I know that we've quite a number of people tuning in here from Canada too. And what I'm going to do now is I am going to go to my viewer. Okay, so I'm going to go to my viewer here. So just before I go on, for anybody who's not familiar with VectorVest, so VectorVest is a stock analysis system whereby we can take a look at different stocks and different sectors and different ETFs, exchange traded funds, and what we can do then is delve into those to find something that we might be looking for, and then we can analyze them using proprietary and traditional indicators so that you can maximize return and you can minimize your risk. Okay, if you're not familiar with the company, what I suggest you do is you can always check out the website, or you can go to a plethora of shows that we run like this one, where you can learn a lot more about the company. But just wanted to make sure that you knew when I was switching over to the VectorVest program, this is what I'm talking about. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm not going to look here at Stock Viewer or Watchlist Viewer or Trading System Viewer. In fact, what I'm going to go here is I'm going to go to Sector Viewer. Now, as I'm looking back over here at the article, I'm not going to bring it up again, but let's just check over here. So technology, building and construction, and energy. So as you can see here, VectorVest has 41 different sectors that are all here, and they're all ranked here in the VectorVest system. So let's say that I wanted to take building and construction, right? And I'm going to take a look. Now, you just don't worry about the sea of data here that you see. Don't worry, I'm going to guide you right the way through here. So you can see here we've steel, metal products, bank paper, etc. And let's just scroll down here. And here I see building. Okay, I'm going to click here. Now I'm literally looking, it's just right up there over my head. You can see there, it's building. Now, if I double click on building in here, okay, what's going to happen is that the industries within building are going to appear, and they just don't seem to be appearing on my screen in there. Okay, so and there's another route to get towards this anyway, and that is where I can go in and look at the industry viewer. Okay, so if that doesn't work for you, which it will on most of your systems, I think it might just be an issue with my system at the moment, I can then go in here to industry viewer. If you double click on building like I was showing you there, what will happen is a list of the industries underpinning building will appear. But I'm going to show you how to get there a different way. And that is, I'm going to go in here to my industry viewer, and I am going to click on industry, and now that will automatically update the system so that then all of the building sectors come up close enough to the top, because of course B is very close to the top. They're very close to the top there in terms of the alphabet. Let me scroll on down there. Bang, bang, bang. There we go. Okay. So here we go. Building. Now I'm just going to get out of the way here for a moment to go in the wrong way. So you can see here, building, we have AC heating, we have cement, we have heavy construction, mobile painting products, residential, commercial tools, etc. Now, what I'm now going to do though is let me scroll over. Okay, let me scroll over, and what I'd like to see is the fastest moving. I'd like to see the fastest moving industry right over here. And how I know it's the fastest moving is RT. So RT is an indicator that looks at the direction of the industry in terms of the overall stock prices within the industry, the magnitude of that speed, whether it's moving up or down quickly or slowly, and also the volatility, right? Also the volatility as well. So it looks at the magnitude, it looks at, the direction, the magnitude, and the dynamics as well. Okay, if I take a look over here, doesn't this stand out a mile? Here, look, 1.41. This one here stands out a mile. So building, painting products. Now, if you double click there, what you're going to get is you're going to get a list of stocks then that actually comprise that industry. Okay, so you can see here, same issue is happening in my system, but again, it's not a big deal. So if you double click there, you're then going to find the fastest moving within building, you can find the fastest moving industry. And then within the fastest moving industry, you can find some stocks that might take your interest. For example, a stock that might be undervalued, or a stock that might be having a similar RT that is moving very quickly, etc. Now, I'm going to give you more detail on individual stocks as we go on, but I do have 5 trends to talk to you about tonight. So I just want to give you a very clear, concise way of looking at something like smart cities and thinking, how might I turn that into my advantage? Now, another one that's over here is energy. Okay, if I look back over in the article, the 4 key areas are enabling technologies, building and construction, energy, waste and water management. So if I similarly, I'm just going to scroll down here through my industries, and I am going to find energy. Okay, energy, there we go. So we have 2, let me just scroll, I'm going to scroll there now again. Okay, there we go. Now you see they're over there in my head. So we've clean energy and we have coal energy. And if we look at those right now, what we see over here is that the RT, let me scroll over there slowly. RT is, at the moment, the RT seems to be moving faster for coal energy as distinct to clean energy. Now, I'd be interested in delving in there a little bit more too. And of course, the other thing I could do is I could look over here as well to ETFs. And if I look at this sector, this one is also quite interesting, is if I were to look at my ETFs and where the sector was energy of 1 point, the RT here is at 1.11. Or also, and I can go on and on. So you see my point is use the sector viewer to connect something, just checking the chat there, use the sector viewer to connect something to do with what you might be seeing in a tech trend. And that, of course, that may tie into an ESG trend. I'm going to, maybe some of you aren't familiar with ESG. Don't worry, I'll explain that to you later on as well. Okay, that was our first one. Now, moving speedily on, I'm going to bring you back over here to my other screen and let me tell you about something really interesting, well, that I think is really interesting anyway. And that is, over here, I am bringing you now to the API economy. This is something that I think is really interesting as well. So, the API economy. Now, first of all, for those of you who don't know, the API, what API is application programming interfaces. Now, people who are developers use these, talk about these all the time, but I'm just going to explain exactly what it is, and I'm going to use the VectorVest website to give you an example of this, okay? Can I just check there in the chat, how many of you have heard of the API economy or APIs in general? If you have, I'd be interested to hear, and in what context, and if you haven't, I'm interested to hear that too. So this is a podcast that I'm going to be putting into the follow-up article that you can listen to. Very, very interesting here, just about how APIs work and also how it's a growing trend and so on. But particularly, I'm just going to tell you, okay, interesting. Okay, So some of you say, Jim said no idea. Richard said no, please share. Okay, it's very interesting. That podcast I think is 33 minutes. Okay, 30 minutes, 32 minutes there. It's an interesting one, all right. I listen to a lot of podcasts actually, and this is particularly tech focused ones. Just really, they're great for giving you ideas. So in this case anyway, so let me bring you over there to the VectorVest website. Okay, now if any of you are familiar with the VectorVest website, which I'm sure, okay, lots of you, Lee saying nada, Bar saying no, okay. Glad to be bringing you something new today then. Right, here we have a web page. Would you agree with that? Yeah, here we have a web page. Now, within here in this web page, let's just take a look at what's here. Up here we have a header, okay, so you can see that the design is different up there. Down here we have a featured blog post, okay, but over here we've got a search box. Now, do you think that somebody had to code in, literally what I'm pointing to right there, do you think somebody had to code that in? Somebody had to code in that search box? No. Instead, what was placed is that when the frame of that page was built, then it was built by blocks of text, sorry, not blocks of text, but it was basically a wireframe, basically a complete page. And then we decided we wanted a search box in there. So instead of building the code about, like, I mean, if you want to measure about how wide this is or what the color of the box is, that didn't have to be done at all. Simply a widget was planted on that page where you could simply click and drag and drop. That's all. Now, let me draw your attention. Okay, Mike says, yes, it's the pipe to connect disparate programs from one to another. Okay, interesting. That's an interesting way of putting it, Mike. Let me draw your attention to something else. Look over here. Now, over here, you've got all the social media buttons, right? Now, you can see here, if I click on this, it's going to bring me to, it's going to bring me to the VectorVest Facebook page, right? And that's going to come up there. If I was to click here, it's naturally enough going to bring me to the, again, do you think all of those buttons were all coded in? No, not at all. Again, what would have happened there is that a panel was there, and then there would have been a drag and drop box that would have connected these buttons right back, like a fancy link, right back to the Facebook page, the Twitter page, and so on like that. Now, if we scroll on down here, you can see that I've been here. So there you can see my recent Fantastic Female Fridays focusing on ETFs, looking at gender diversity. You can see that they're in there. Now, look in here. So here you've got a video. Now look at this. This here has been embedded in. How I know it's been embedded in is if I push this button, in fact, I don't even need to do that. Look here, watch on YouTube. This has been embedded. So a space would have been created on this page, a space. It would have been a blank box would have been created on the page, and then you would have put in an embed code that would connect it directly. So the difference between an embed code and a link is that a link is something that you would click on, right? So if I click here into the article, for example, okay, I'm going to click here into the article, and this link is going to, let me just move out of the way here. See the way down here? You can see there, if you look down here, you'll see where that link is bringing me to. Right, that link is bringing me to the YouTube page where you can look at that episode. So that's a link. We can all tell it's a link. It's highlighted in a different color, and if I hover over it, I can see that my mouse turns from an arrow into a hand. Whereas instead, if I go back here and I scroll down, let me go back here, and I'm sure that's going to let me go back. Is it not? Back to the blog, yeah. So let me go back there. Still not reacting to me. Well, I'll have to go the other way then. And I'm going to go over here to education and to blogs. And now I'm going to scroll here to stock market investing. And then it'll bring me to the blog, right back to the blog. The difference between the link that I showed you and down here is one was a link and the other was an embed code. So the embed code means that we have a space where you can see the full picture of what the video looks like. Now, look at the chat function over here. Who's this? Adam. Adam is here in the chat function. That too is an API because that is connected into the page. Now this is actually responsive because look what it said. It said, hello, welcome back. So what this has done, it's a little bit like the Internet of Things, only it's not using sensors, is it is gathering from the fact that I visited the page twice, is that now it's telling me that I've come back. And so now VectorVest is ready there to chat to me. And that, by the way, Adam is an actual person. They all are. Anybody who's on those chats, they all are. I've met them, spoken to them all, and can confirm that they are all real people. So now what I've shown you here are basic APIs, right? I've shown you basic ways, but let me describe to you what the API economy is there are some really cool ones out there where, what about if I wanted to embed a map here? All right, so I'm going to embed a Google map in here that is going to show you the places of all VectorVest subscribers all over the world. How about that? Do I have to code in a map? No. All I need to do is get an API that links back to perhaps Google Maps, and then I can determine what part of that I want. So what I've been telling you about are all basic, right? They're all pretty basic. Putting in widgets into page frames like this, or connecting in social media panels like that, or using embed codes to embed content from YouTube. But the API economy is basically like a supply chain for tech. It is a looking at what digital innovations that, if I'm going to build a site, I shouldn't have to build a site. If I want to build an app, I shouldn't have to build it all from scratch. I should be able to drag and drop various different elements in there. One of the apps I want to show you on this is Bubble. Bubble is one that I used to build like a super low code app there a while ago. Let me show you Bubble, not bubble.ie, it's bubble.io. Bubble.io. There we go, bubble.io. So bubble.io is the best way to build apps without code. And this is an example of the API economy. Here is where so you can see here, that type of an app could be built in about 5 minutes. Because I can put in an API for maps, I can put in different color buttons, and I can put in an API that can lead it back to some sort of Google Sheet engine. So that is, and you see here, drag and drop, and therefore request ride, that can be connected back in an API to something else. So that is what the API economy is. Now, this one I think is really, really interesting, because the reason that I think it's worthwhile looking at is these are the big, these are big targets. These are big takeover targets. So I wanted to give you a couple of ideas on this, right? For example, Salesforce went to, it acquired MuleSoft. And Google went on to buy API GEE. Now, I think that's APG, I think is the name of the company. But this is what those types of companies are actually seeking to acquire, because this is a really fast growing area. Anybody who is interested in tech and wants to build an app or a site is using APIs, whether you know it or not. And if you can get an API that really limits down the amount of code that you need to build, and thus the amount of developers' time that you need to pay for, that's worthwhile. And then there are all these marketplaces like Bubble that can enable that as well. One key thing here that comes out of this podcast that I think is worthwhile showing you, or that is mentioning to you, is this whole conversation of build or buy. Will we build our code? Will we build our backend? Or will we buy it? And the beautiful thing is now is that you can have a little bit of both through the API economy. Okay, so I would just, before we move on and I talk to you about our third trend, which is a little bit broader than the other two, what I would just like to hear from you now is, if we were to do an episode dedicated to smart cities or the API economy, would that be something of interest to you? So go to put that out there to the chat. If I was to do an episode totally dedicated to smart cities and delving into that much more and looking at the stocks, underpinning that area much more, and give you more examples of where this is working around the world and how it's looking for the future, would that be something of interest to you? And the other question is, if I was to delve more into the API economy, would that be of interest to you as well? So rather than putting this in as a trend, if I was to put this in as a dedicated full episode, what are your thoughts on this? So Margaret says, yes, please. Okay. Thank you, Margaret. Well, that's super. That's super. Both, says Richard. Okay. That's interesting. Love to hear from lots more of you there, because of course I want everybody to feel part of the direction of this show. This is something that can go in so many directions, and I will make sure of it. And obviously, I'm really fortunate that I get to lead the way on this, and the VectorVest team have given me the, as we say in Europe, carte blanche in order to decide where this goes. So I would like your thoughts on this. So any other comments, please do pop them there into the chat. And of course, if you're watching this and this isn't live, then of course you can always put your comments in there in the comment panel as well. Okay, right. So far, So far, 3 of you are now coming back to me there to say that this is something of interest from a full episode point of view. So I'll bear that in mind. Okay. And if there's any other, as I say, any other comments that come through there, I'm going to keep a good eye on them. Next one, I'm going to shock you, right? I'm going to shock you with the next statistic and the third trend. So the first trend is all around smart cities. The second one is the API economy. Both of them are big, like they're in big growth phase. The third one is I'm going to show you this statistic, right? This statistic. I'm not going to read anything down through the article. I just want to give you this statistic, right? Imagine this. The top 900 billion spent on digital transformation was wasted. Now you might say, okay, well, how much of that 900 billion, am I right there? 900 billion, yeah. How much of that, if that was wasted, how much was spent? All I'm going to do is point this out to you, right? Is an IDC analysis estimates that 70% of all digital transformation initiatives do not reach their goals. And that is of the 1.3 trillion, right? 1.3 trillion that was spent in digital transformation in 2018, it was estimated that more than 900 billion went to waste. Why possibly would any company spend any money on digital transformation, which is such a hot topic at the moment? Why would they spend that money and then waste a lot of it, right? So I looked into this. I'm gonna go full camera scene here, and you and me need to have a chat about this, right? Because I think I have the answer, but I'd like to get your thoughts on this. I interviewed a couple of people on this topic in January of this year, and this number was actually quoted to me during the conference, right? So I wasn't aware of that statistic beforehand. So I thought this was bizarre. Like surely companies would, if you're going to invest in tech, if you're going to invest in digital transformation, and like, let's think, what does digital transformation mean? For an awful lot of companies, digital transformation would have been how people interact. So rather than face-to-face, it now might be through Zoom or Teams or Aratalk or, the other platforms that are out there. Maybe it's through that. Or maybe digital transformation is that as you maybe have like our accounting, right? Our accounting software, rather than having that be desktop-based, is that now would be cloud-based. So that would mean that rather than, using a desktop system and then backing it up on a different device, is that instead it would be real-time and you could generate real-time reports. Okay, they're simple examples of what I believe and have experienced digital transformation to be. And I can give you lots more. In fact, what do you think digital transformation is, or what experiences do you have of it? Again, I'd love to hear that. In fact, the fact that we're here is an example. When I started working with VectorVest almost 10 years ago, primarily the way in which we interacted with our customers was in person. And I'm not talking about anything to do with the pandemic. I'm talking about, at that stage, this type of interaction between people, like YouTubes or like Facebook Lives or like webinars. The technology and even the culture of interaction like this simply wasn't there. So the very fact that we're here is a big part of digital transformation as well. So I'm going to keep an eye on the chat there, and I'll be interested to see what examples of digital transformation you have. But I'll tell you what changed in my view since January is I took away those thought processes and I thought to myself, surely you'd maximize your tech. And at the time, I thought to myself, now here in VectorVest, we use a variety of different project management tools over the years. And the second latest one that we have used for quite some time is Trello. And I found Trello to be very helpful, very effective, great for holding people accountable, including me, great for storing documents, great for looking at the past in terms of how things are changing, all of those things, right? Very good, found it very helpful. And then one night on Twitter, I saw a thread relating to project management tools and what people are using. I didn't find it, my husband did. So Ardal found this thread anyway on Twitter, and he says to me, you might take a look at that. He said, things are changing. There's a lot more things happening. We've got Fantastic Female Fridays. We didn't know it at the time, but the ESG Tech Show was soon to becoming a reality, like you're making happen here with me now. The summits are going on. There's also a lot happening in Europe, a variety of other things. He said, maybe we should have a look at this. So we then moved to a new project management tool. Before I tell you what it is, I'm going to take a look at the chat. And again, I'd love to hear from you. What project management tools have you used? So Trello was one that I've mentioned. I'm about to tell you the one that we moved to, but I just be interested to hear from you what sort of project management tools that you use. Richard here says healthcare, patients can see lab results in real time. Absolutely, Richard. I mean, that's a form of digital transformation. And if we link it back to the first topic, that, you say here, and the doctors and patients can talk on the web in real time as well. Like if we were to connect that back to the Internet of Things, or maybe not to smart cities, but smart healthcare, is also if there was sensors. There are sensors now, particularly for people in dementia. For example, if they leave the cooker on, or if for some reason their memory fails them, there can be sensors now that can trigger a note or trigger a message or a notification back to a family member, or if they don't take their tablets, that could be sent back to a healthcare centre, etc. Very, very, very good examples there. So if there's any other comments there on digital transformation, or if you have any project management tools that you use, I'd love to hear from you. So after we looked at that Twitter thread, I turned to a great techie friend of mine, someone who really knows her tech, And since then we moved to work on ClickUp, CLICKUP, right? ClickUp. So anyway, moved to ClickUp, and ClickUp just revolutionizes project management. I mean, it is an animal of a tech tool. Also, something that you can embed things in there, so there's real integration into a variety of other things, all sorts of things, right? Really, really, really good. So happy to start paying for that. Got the free version. Okay, said we got a lot of value out of that. Happy to upgrade to the pro version. And do you think that we are using 30% of it? Probably not. And you know why not? I'll tell you why not. Is because we simply haven't had the time to get around to using everything. Typically what happens with digital transformation is we have a use case. There's a specific thing that we want to achieve, right? We look to a tool in order to achieve that. Wonderful. Does that job? Then we think, right, if we were to actually supplement that use case with other data and other this and other that, we do that. Great. But what we don't think about is all of the other pieces of the technology that could solve a problem, that could help what we're doing, because solves the use case, off we go. And I have to say, I am that type of person that doesn't read the instructions, on how to create something. I simply kind of just figure it out myself, go back and troubleshoot, and when I know that it's working, I don't look at the 10 other buttons that can lead me to do anything. That I believe is the reason that we're seeing headlines like that, is that 70% of digital transformation is being wasted. Now, that has changed my mind about working with things like ClickUp or any other tech tools that we're using, because there are a variety of them. And in fact, I would wonder how many of you who are here who have a subscription to the VectorVest system know about all that it can do. Now, I have a pretty good idea that I know every nook and cranny in there, but that's because I've been looking at the system for quite some time, and I really should know what's going on. But in your case, did you know that what I was showing you there about the sector viewer can lead you into the industry viewer, can lead you into the individual stocks? And in fact, could we go a lot further? Would you know how to build a unisearch arising from that sector specific change? Well, all of those things you can learn from any one of us during the various different shows. Glenn's Trending Thursday that's on tomorrow, of course, or any of Fantastic Female Fridays that you will see with me again in a couple of weeks' time. All of those we'll teach you. But the point is do you get the most out of your VectorVest subscription? Am I getting the most out of the ClickUp subscription that we have? The answer is no, I don't. No, I haven't. Or no, I'm not. But I know that I'll be putting more time into learning how, and it's intriguing. So that statistic can really change your mind about the type of usage that you have. Now, I'm looking over here at the comments here, and Richard said, I need a tutorial. I need help to see trends, avoid dips, and when to get in and out. Richard, get on to support and ask them. Ask them what's the best way to make that happen, or what events are happening, or a variety of other things there as well. Make sure and reach out to somebody in support and tell them what you need, and let them guide the way forward. Andrea says, working with VectorVest for a number of years, would not invest without it. That's lovely to hear, Andrea. And you know my own thoughts on that, so I won't elaborate there. But the point is digital transformation. The fact that so much of it is wasted is, what does that mean from an investing point of view? Well, I'll tell you, the other thing is an awful lot of the way in which things work, including the business model of VectorVest or the business model of ClickUp, is that there isn't actually there isn't any discount, we'll say, if you don't use a certain amount. Instead, it's there, and the people who use it to the nth degree pay as much as people who use it to a smaller degree. Yes, of course, I know there's different levels. Same as in VectorVest, there's 3 different levels of subscription access. I could be paying more for ClickUp too, but I mean even within your subscription. So maximize it for sure. Let me take a look over here now. Can I actually ask John? Hi, John. John is moderating the session at VectorVest. If somebody like Richard there wants more guidance on how to use the product, could you maybe just put in a link there that he could follow up on? I'm guessing it would be to reach out to support@vectorvest.com, but just John, you might just respond to that there in the chat, please. So Mike says data capture and analysis of mobile equipment and stationary rotating equipment like turbines and compressors. Exactly, because of course the fact that the compressors excuse me, and the turbines, they can be capturing data in their own right. You're right there, Mike. Analysis of same for diagnosis and intervention, link back to OEM manuals, service bulletins, and troubleshooting. Big data stuff. Big data will certainly feature in future episodes as well, where we will consider that topic and how that can be used in order to make good decisions and smart decisions and moving forward. Okay. And Andrea says the training and support for VectorVest is optimum. Thank you, Andrea. So that'd be great, John, if you could pop on over there and take a look. Now, I want to bring you back over to the program here for a moment. Okay, let's come back over here, because any of you interested in digital transformation and assuming tech companies are moving forward, let's take a look here at the market index viewer. Okay, so over here, I can take a look over here at the market index viewer. And of course, as many of you might know, the NASDAQ is the index that tracks the tech stocks. So if I'm going to take a look in here, NASDAQ, here we go. Maybe here we'll take a look at the NASDAQ 100. So here in the case, the NASDAQ 100, the largest 100 companies in the tech, in tech, right? Actually, you know what? Let's not assume I know anything. Click on view full stock analysis report, and the full stock analysis report comes up here. So for any stock, any ETF, any index that's in this VectorVest system, right click and press full analysis report, and that is how you will be able to find anything that's in here. For anybody who's not a VectorVest subscriber, you can do this for any stock. You can get a full stock analysis report if you simply go to the page on our site that is the free stock analysis report. Anyone at all, okay? So in here, if let me take a look here, you can see the business description here is the NASDAQ 100 index, largest 100 companies in terms of technology. Okay, and then I can take a look in here all the more. So, however, I can't invest in an index, but I can invest in an ETF. So if I go to ETF viewer, and in here, I'm now going to do the same. I'm going to take a look for the NASDAQ. Okay, NASDAQ 100 over here. So you can see here I've got the NASDAQ 100. It's the NDX, is the symbol. And I can see so far today that it's down 0.21%. But let's take a look and see what's been going on here with this, for example, over the past year. Do you know what the clue is? Sparkling NDX. So let's go to graphs. I could have also gone directly from there, but I'm just going to pop on over here. NDX here. Let's take a look at this graph. Okay, this is over the past year. I'm just going to take off all of the MACD and so on like that, and the RT here so that you can see. Okay, there you go. That has been the direction of the NASDAQ over the past year. So digital transformation, and the fact that so many companies have been investing in it, and individuals, and to a large degree, a lot of us haven't really even had a great deal of choice. You can see that the direction of travel there has been, right, let me go this way. It started off down here. That ETF was, or that level there was 9,298 points, and now it's up here at 13,000 points. So a very, very significant increase. And of course it was up there at 13,970 points there as well. Now I'm also going to add new, and in here I'm going to go Q. Okay, and I want to go for Invesco. This is an ETF. That's great. So just going to, John, I can see there that you're online now. Can I just ask you if it would be okay to do two things? One is Richard is wondering where he can get some tutorials and some direction I was suggesting that he reaches out to the support team at support@vectorvest.com, but you might be able to direct him. And also, could you put the link in the chat for anybody who would like a free stock analysis, please, just so that they have the link directly there. Anybody can get it thereafter. Now, so you can see here the Invesco, the ETF here for the Nasdaq. Let me see now. Is this for a year? Oh, this is only for 7 months. Yeah, this one is actually quite a new one if its full life is there. But we can go into any of the individual Nasdaq ETFs there, and you can see them tracking the largest tech companies, rather than getting into individual stocks. Okay, 2 more rapid fire trends where I wanted to spend the most time on those 3 from a meaty point of view, and I also, of course, naturally enough, wanted to get your thoughts on some of those as well. Right, 2 more big trends I want to show you. One is a big trend that I'm showing you from a little amount of data, but I see it all the time. Let me pop on over there to my other screen. Okay, and I mean the other screen. Okay, here we are. Now, I just want to show you here. So I conducted a survey with a number of young people, right? And there was only 41 responses in this, and I'm going to continue doing this. So I conducted a survey on a group of 16-year-olds in Ireland. So it's only 41 so far, but I'm going to continue doing this. I'm going to report back to you as well, right? We're going to keep talking about this. And I asked them this, is do you feel that there will be more job opportunities in the following sectors in the future? I asked them for technology. 97.6% of them said yes. And 75% of them said on sustainability. This is the other really big trend, this is where young people are expecting the jobs to be. And you know what? They are right. They are correct. This is basically where it's going to be coming from. So the key trend here that I'm trying to point out to you is that people are upskilling in these areas. They are progressively upskilling in these areas. In technology and in sustainability, they're preparing themselves for these. People today are focusing on no code. They're focusing on low code. Like I was talking to you about earlier, they're focusing on the, yes, Richard, you're right there, on technology, engineering, healthcare. And technology underpins an awful lot of these anyway. So they're also taking a look, for example, and they're focusing on things like how to build their communication skills in a remote working environment. That's huge. An awful lot of them are doing coding classes in the afternoons or at the weekends after their classes. This is something where they really have an interesting idea of that. But I also asked another question, right? Let me just show you here. I asked them another question and I said, do you feel that you are digitally literate? Do you feel you're digitally literate? Again, I'd ask you, do you feel that you're digitally literate as well? I'd love to hear what you have to say there. So do you feel that you're digitally literate? And I define that as able to use and manage technology well. So here's what they said. So 2/3 of them said yes, 1/4 of them said maybe, and 2 out of my 41 responses said no. Now again, I know that this is a small data set, but it's just, and this was taken from a cross section of people of that age group, admittedly in Ireland. You think there's room for improvement, probably that of us all. But I then asked them to determine why they felt, or why they picked the answer that they picked. So what they said is, they said they can write one of them said they can write computer languages. Now, that's not something I would typically see a lot. I know how to work most digital platforms, grown up in a generation and culture immersed and defined by technology, use it a lot, do ICT classes in school, that's information and communications technology, feel like I know how to use technology, work well with computers in school, I think I'm decent at computering stuff, typical 16-year-old answer. This is why I love that age group. They'll tell you exactly what they think. I can keep up when using technology I wouldn't be acquainted with. So this is key. You see, this is the point, is that even if they're working with unknown technologies, they're still happy to work with them. And I also wanted to pick up on the point there around sustainability as well, right? When it comes to sustainability, is 3/4 of them feel that there will be more job opportunities there. The question is, what sort of skills can they build accordingly? Well, what they tell me is STEM. It's science, and technology, of course, but engineering and to a lesser degree maths. They're interested in looking at, okay, how can we use engineering to create wind turbines? Even more broadly than that, communication strategies around sustainability. Also looking at harnessing new ways of power and using those new ways of power to connect in with the Internet of Things. Could a wind turbine also be something that can just collect not just energy and put it back into the national grid, but can also collect data about the weather, again about air quality, and have predictive analytics around where future wind turbines should go? Or can wind turbines have a sense of machine learning between them all? So that was the fourth trend that I wanted to show you, and I'm going to show you the last one in just 1 minute, because sometimes in this show we'll focus more on ESG. Tonight I focus more on technology. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pop on over here to this one, okay? And this is when it comes to ESG. So just for those who may not be familiar, I'm smiling here at the people who are commenting on your digital literacy. Well, you know, the fact that you're here, you're interacting with the chat, you're not doing too badly. Before I go through the last trend, could I ask a big favor, please? Because this is tonight and it's the first show, could I ask you to please press the like button? And if you're on a mobile device, you'll have to close the chat to press the like button. I'd really appreciate that. Because we've had a couple of likes, and it would just be wonderful if we could if there was more people who are willing to like the show, this particular episode, because then we'll know that this is something of interest to you. And of course, for other people who may be joining, even when the show isn't live, the more likes that we have, well then the more people, or the more likely it is that YouTube will elevate it up so that more people can find out about the show and join the community. I would really appreciate that if you wouldn't mind. So just go over and press the like button, and also subscribe to the channel so you'll know about the next episode. I have an action-packed next episode planned for the next episode of the ESG and Tech Show. Tech and ESG show as well. There's lots, like so much more than I have to talk about. And as I say, you're going to be in the driving seat or in the passenger seat here beside me as we decide together the various different types of content that we're going to look at. So the last one that I want to show you is that when it comes to ESG, so again, for those of you who may not familiar, ESG is environmental, social and governance. And this is a way in which you measure stocks. Not just stocks, but companies underpinning the stocks. And what this does then is that it examines how environmentally friendly, how socially conscious, and how well run in terms of governance, good governance, that the business is, and of course the stock is of the business, and then an ETF is a collection of those. But it's interesting here. The reason that I think this is of such relevance is already this evening I have been telling you about, you know, when it comes to the Internet of Things, how they can be used for good or they can be used for environmental purposes. For the API economy, that democratizes tech. It democratizes entrepreneurship. It dramatically then decreases the cost, the amount of money spent on developers or developers' time, and instead then through the API economy can really move people's variety around. It can move an awful lot of money around through the API economy, and then enabling developers to focus on what they do best, right? So you can see there that there's kind of a social bent to that. Digital transformation, that's just everywhere. I didn't get into an ESG point of view there. In the fourth trend, where I was showing you how young people feel that job opportunities are developing in the future, 3/4 of them feel they will be in sustainability. So environmental, social and governance factors and investing, they don't have to be taken apart at all from traditional investing. In my opinion, they can be very much interwoven. However, Europe is leading the way when it comes to ESG. European ETFs closed the fourth quarter of 2021, and I will give you so many updates and statistics on ESG over the coming months. So inflows throughout the quarter amounted to 44.4 billion, and with over 20 billion invested in environmental, social and governance, right? So all of that's really interesting, but I am just conscious that it is focused on a time frame. But the key thing here is that what I found quite interesting is that in broad terms, equity ETFs took the lion's shares of inflows, netting 38.3 billion, while bonds netted nearly 10. But assets in ESG ETFs amounted to 90 billion by year end. But look at this figure here, 137% of an increase from 2019. In 1 year, 137%. And the statistics show right now that ESG investing is set to overtake traditional investing, according to PwC, by the year 2025. So that's why this trend, I believe, is a really big one, but particularly its European ETFs are leading the way. If you want to learn more about a specific niche of that, I covered that in Fantastic Female Fridays, and in the episode that I looked at there. I took it from a gender diversity point of view here, and I'm going to mute that. Oh yeah, it is muted, yeah, okay. And in here, what I did was that I looked at gender diversity over here from an ESG point of view, and then what I did was that I looked at a range of ESG ETFs focusing specific on the S of ESG around gender diversity and to see what the outcome would be. And the answer was, it was very, very positive. So that whole episode there, you can evaluate that at another stage. And I specifically spoke about 3 European ETFs that are tracking that specific theme. So there's so much to talk about in this area, but that's why we created the show. So I'm going to pop back over here. Now, let me see. Richard said, does EU have more ESG companies versus USA? So ESG isn't a type of company. It's a type of way of measuring data, actually, Richard. So what I would say is that Europe has a faster pace of investing into ESG at the moment than the US. That's what I mean by it's leading the way. But a company, there isn't such thing as an ESG company per se, would be the way in which the data is measured. Interesting, he says, can we have a discussion on best stocks for EV, being electric vehicles and artificial intelligence? Absolutely. You know what, Richard? When I was kindly invited a while ago to step in to Glenn's Shoes and Trending Thursdays, both of those topics, both AI and now I spoke about ESG as distinct from electric vehicles. I spoke about at that time. So I'd love to do an update on both of those. And by the way, any other suggestions that anybody has on other topics that we could feature on the show, please do pop them in and let me know. I'd only love to hear them. Okay? So, on that note, I am going to thank you so sincerely to you all for being here with me on the first ever tech and ESG and tech show. It has just been a pure joy. As you can see, these are topics that are really interesting to me. Very, very close to my heart, all right. But close to my interests. I think that there is so much to talk about. And these are things that are changing all the time, and they're having a big influence on so many things that we do. We'll always tie them back then to an investing point of view. That will be the core of the show. But it's looking at all these trends that are happening, that are affecting lifestyles and businesses and people and so on. That's what our focus will be. Long may it continue. So, my name is Susan. It's been a joy. Please do like and comment and chat. We're only delighted to see you. And then we'll see you next time. And thank you so much again for being here. Thank you all, and goodbye.